Hey everyone, Dr. Rob here. I want to take a moment to spotlight my sponsors, Professional Co-op, empowering clinicians with premium access to top-tier lab services at a fraction of the cost. Since 2001, Professional Co-op has redefined what efficient, patient-centered support should look like. No hidden fees, no minimums, and you only pay for completed tests. It's lab access made simple, transparent, and affordable. Trusted by licensed healthcare professionals across the country, Professional Co-op is your strategic partner in delivering high-quality care. Discover more at www.professionalco-op.com. A quick shout out to my other sponsor, Functional Medicine University, one of the top online programs for learning functional medicine. Founded by Dr. Ron Grisanti, FMU has trained thousands of healthcare professionals in over 50 states and over 68 countries. It's completely online, self-paced, and CE approved for a wide range of clinicians, MDs, DCs, NDs, PAs, and more. At the end of the program, you earn your certified functional medicine practitioner credential, something that's truly elevated my clinical approach. If you're ready to level up your practice with evidence-based root cause care, FMU is the place to start. Check them out at Functional Medicine University. Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Sylvan here, Proven Health Alternatives. I've got a superstar in the area of functional medicine and, lifestyle in general, Dr. Pedram Shojai. Dr. Pedram, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Great to be with you, my friend.
I'm excited because I know I'm going to learn a lot from you today, just from the fact that, the information that you submitted for us to discuss, it was kind of revolutionary. So we all know that the gut is the epicenter of your health. 80% of your immune cells are in the gut. Macro and micronutrients are absorbed in your gut. What have you done for your guts lately? Do you have the guts to be healthy? But there's a term that's being thrown around that I have to admit, was new to me, called neuroception. Could you define that and tell me, what's going on there?
So I found this by hook or by crook by getting compromised myself. And so nothing like a doctor who can't sleep at night. And, PubMed is always there. And I started digging into the literature around why I was having insomnia and came across this body of work around neuroception. And it has a lot to do with the arousal of the system and the body's safety signaling. And I had come back from a summer in Portugal where, just weapons free, take your foot off the brake, wine and cheese and bread and all the things that Europe's known for. And, their stuff's fine. And it turns out I came back with a compromised gut lining and endotoxemia, terms that you are very familiar with, right?
Yeah.
And as I was like, are there any psychological implications? Are there any tie-ins with insomnia? And there was just study after study showing that, look, if the body doesn't feel safe, you cannot relax. It's like my body doesn't speak English. So if I just had a cheese burrito that compromised my gut lining and I have lipopolysaccharides crossing over and setting off my immune system, how is my body going to ring an alarm bell? It's trying to say, hey, dummy, stop doing that. But I'm busy having the espresso after that meal. I'm busy going off to my next call. I'm busy being a busy human, and I'm not listening. But I will get it in the subtle cues of mild anxiety. I will get it with maybe some headaches. I will get it with insomnia when the lights go out and the world gets quiet. You will start to feel this compromise in your safety signaling, this neuroception, if you will. And it has a lot to do with Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory.
Right.
There's been a lot of work on this, talking about, our ventral vagal, our dorsal vagal, like our freeze response, and our parasympathetic versus sympathetic, which you hear a lot in the podcast, right? It's like, fight, flight, freeze, and then rest and digest. But our body has a subtle kind of, bat phone, if you will, saying, I don't feel safe. And when it does so, you cannot produce school books when the bombs are falling, right? And so we end up living in a wartime economy. And we try to heal when the bombs are falling, and we wonder why more glutamine and more supplements and slippery elm and all this stuff we're trying to help these patients with isn't working while they are completely freaked out and stressed out about the state of affairs of the world or their system is compromised. And so I started swimming upstream because I hate being wrong. I do not like when someone comes to me for help and I'm not able to help them. Pure and simple. Like, call it ego, call it arrogance as a doctor. I don't like not helping people. And so those are the ones that keep me up at night. And the more I dug into this, the more I realized that this is a missing ingredient in
Right.
the realm of gut health and in frankly in functional. I had a long conversation with Jeff Bland about this over lunch a couple months ago. And I think this is going to be an emerging body of work that's going to revolutionize how we treat all types of patient populations.
I agree. I mean, it was a new concept to me, somebody who purports himself as a gut guy. I got my butt kicked. I own up to it. As I told you before, I asked five real good practitioners, and it was a new theme to them. So this is going to be without question a new cutting edge theme. And it's interesting because there was a lot to unbox in what you said. You gave a lot of pearls. So the first thing is that your gut functions in a subconscious way. So that's hard for people to understand. And it does so because it's got its own nervous system, the largest nervous system with the most neurons in the body, called the enteric nervous system, which is in the lining of the gut. That said, you also spoke about the polyvagal theory and the vagus nerve. So we'll dial it back. Let's get into that enteric nervous system. Let's talk about it and let's see, why did the man, the woman, the person, the thing upstairs make our gut with the largest nervous system in our body?
If you think about where the city walls lie and where the sentinels are to allow for us to have safety signaling, you're going to have scouts out where the rubber hits the road, where we interface with the world. And there's a few places where that happens. It's our skin, it's our mucosal membranes in our nose, our mouth. As we breathe, it's inside of our lungs. But to your point, the superhighway is this huge pipe that goes from rooter to tutor, if you will,
Mm.
that is mile. I mean, it's a tennis court. If you lay it out on flat, it's like it's a tennis court in surface area
Right.
of this single celled membrane
Mhm.
that allows for things to either pass or not pass based on whether or not our immune system says friend or foe, safe or not safe. And so that is a tremendous amount of information with trillions and trillions of players day in, day out, 3 meals a day, multiple snacks coming through and communicating with our bodies through our vagus nerve, which is one of the cranial nerves, runs down, touches all the viscera, all the major organs of the body, and communicating back to the brain, helping us make decisions based on what we are sensing is coming in from the outside world. Now, that used to be pollen, that used to be different phytonutrients, that used to be different bacteria from soil-based organisms and things that varied somewhat, especially seasonally in the natural world. But now it's not, it's red 5. Now it's plasticizing agents. Now it's glyphosate. And so we're getting a tremendous amount of information from synthetic chemicals that are also distorting that channel and creating a lot of noise. And our immune system the example I like to use is this, like, TSA. It's a normal day, normal flight. You pass through, the guys like have a good flight. You get one bad guy getting everyone stressed out. The TSA guys lock everything down. The cops are jumping around. They shut down the airport, right? And now everyone's stressed out all day because there was an event. Now, this is happening in the TSA line of your gut lining multiple times a day, and you're wondering why everyone's stressed out at the airport. You're wondering why, your flight's not on time. And so we are creating a very, very challenging situation in the world that we live in with the additives and bad food choices that we're making, and our nervous system is really, I mean, we're on edge. The nervous system does not know if it can relax, and if it can't relax, it can't heal. And therein, I think, lies the deepest part we could get into later about this theory. And the thesis is you have to feel safe to heal.
Wow. That enteric nervous system, that's interesting because I've always said that the reason that the gut has the largest amount of immune cells and its own nervous system is because it guards the outside world from the inside world. And the conversation just got expanded in that that is correct, that outside world, or the border, if you will, getting through TSA. Great example, great analogy. That border is guarded by those immune cells, those mucins, those globlet cells, to be technical, but we'll try not to be too technical. And they're sensing what's going on. And, like you said, the sensor goes off, it stops it because it's not supposed to cross the gut. Fabulous. And of course, you talked about the vagus nerve, which we're going to go into detail. But passing that barrier, which is the small intestine, getting to the bloodstream, that implies there's a gut immune system interconnection. So I'm going to give you the baton and I'm going to let you roll with that.
The GALT, gut-associated lymphatic tissue, we have lined this border with our security forces. 70, 80% to some accounts of your entire immune system is lined up on this line to say friend or foe, friend or foe. And as we have inflammatory cascades go off, when bad guys cross, those things will send signals back to our nervous system saying it's not safe. Something is attacking down in sector 13B, right? And so this is all just information and this is all kind of run of the mill. But if you were to live in America and eat the standard American diet and consistently throw things down those pipes that are setting off those alarm signals, eventually the troops go, oh yeah, 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 just another deal, and they let the real bad guys cross in, or the system just gets so overwhelmed that you shut down and say, look, we're under attack. We can't do anything right. We're in, DEFCON 3 here. And so all of this signaling, depending on the resilience of the individual's nervous system, makes a difference. And so, I'd be a former monk, mind body guy, right? I can easily be trite and say everyone should just meditate and it's going to solve all your problems. It'll help, but it really depends on the resilience of your system, your gut lining, your ability to perceive stress, and your ability to withstand some of these assaults. And I used to think that from top down, you could resolve so many things with mind body practices. And I realized that, look, if I give someone who has sensitivities, not even allergies, right? Sensitivities to cherries and dairy, a cherry pie, and then ask them to sit down and meditate, they're not going to be very good at it. And so, as above, so below, it's really come full circle for me saying, listen, I really need all of my patients to clear environmental toxins because they burden and stress the body and set off this arousal system, and heal their gut lining so that all of this arousal from this neuroceptive array comes down. And from there, then we can start to work on these pathways better. Then we can start making better decisions. Then we're not coming from a hasty decision ecology because we're so stressed out. After many, many years of clinical practice, this is where I'm seeing the best results, right? And so just here to report it back, right?
It's funny you allude to clinical practice. You've been in clinical practice for how many years now?
2001. So
25.
yeah, yeah,
Welcome to
24
my
years.
world. I got you. I'm at 26. How many books have you written?
I've written 8 books, technically. Seven fully, and one was a rewrite.
How many TV shows were you on while TV was important before it became all social media, podcasts, reels, etc.?
Yeah, a bunch, dozens. I did the parade, I did the tours. It's exhausting, but I did it because I really wanted people to read the books, and so you get out there,
Wanted to get the
you bang the
message out.
drums. Um, yeah, I've been around the block, right? I've been around the block. I used to own multiple clinics. I consulted for 1,400 corporations trying to get them to not need me, right? And so really in the medical space, I found 20 years ago that I was working the MASH unit, right? We only got paid for diagnosable illness. And I had to wait for someone to break before their insurance would pay for me to try to resolve their symptoms instead of solve the problem. And that didn't feel right. And so, you go get alt education and you start learning how to actually fix people's problems. And, then it's the wild, wild west, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
hokey stuff out there as well. So you really got to be discerning in the space of alt medicine to still remain evidence-based.
So neuroception, let's do a little game, New York style, rapid fire. I actually do it, and I was on a podcast, and someone said to me, "I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions." I was like, "Yeah, let's go." So neuroception, gut feeling, synonymous.
Close enough. Yes. Because the safety signaling is where the gut and the vagus nerve touch the brain. And so I think, gut feeling adjacent, absolutely. If we got technical, I'm sure people would argue about it, but I'll say yes.
Symbiosis, small intestine immune system.
That's the name of the game. Symbiosis and understanding the beneficial players and the keystone players that allow for us to be good shepherds of those colonies and feed them the right foods makes all the difference in how the small intestine is either reactive or happy in what comes down those pipes.
Pre or probiotics.
Both. You got to feed your friends, and I think that has been one of the biggest issues in the probiotic industry. Is we went over to this pill for an ill model, saying, well, you could just take this. What are you feeding it? What are the fibers? And so I think, at the end of the day, how you eat means everything. But if you're going to supplement and do probiotics without prebiotics, I think you're missing it.
Dysbiosis, leveling of good and bad bacteria. My question to you is it the bane of our existence?
I think it's close. I think if 80%, it's like Pareto's principle. If 80% of your immune system is pointing to an area and saying this is where this is my biggest KPI, right? Then I would say that should probably be our emphasis as well, right? And so resolving high leveraged problems. And if 80% of my system was looking at one problem to solve and I had a problem there, I'd fix that first.
Let's parachute into the idea of dysbiosis then. What causes it? How would you test for it? What would you do if I came in and you were concerned that I was dysbiotic?
I tell you what I used to do in the old days is we do a bunch of expensive microbiome testing, figure out what's wrong, and then realize everyone was a dumpster fire. And it's a while back, I realized that was inefficient and too expensive. Obviously, we did the elimination provocation diets and put people on restricted diets for a month or two and figure out what they're sensitive to, and it worked absolutely, but it was just very time consuming.
Arduous.
Yeah, but what I've done in the past couple of years has been revolutionary, really, and it's not that complicated. Is we just test for the zonulin, occludin, LPS, candida, the big things that lead to gut permeability, and from there we just look at food sensitivities because I don't care what I think I'm doing for your gut. If I find out that you're sensitive and have immunoglobulin reactions to pears and you're eating pears, then I missed that, and shame on me. And so I've been testing for food sensitivities, restricting those foods, and then working to resolve gut permeability. We do that for 3 to 6 months. And then at that point, then you start looking at esoteric things in the microbiome and you start, making micro adjustments. But I've found a lot more leverage in that type of approach because it's cheap, it's easy, and it's a finger prick versus, sending feces in the mail and all sorts of things that kill compliance for our patients.
Yeah, everybody loves a poop test. Haha.
Yeah.
That's the compliance on that is low, but piggyback on what you said, food sensitivities may be the leading cause of chronic hidden inflammation, especially in the gut. It's quite unsettling. And like you said, it may cause a dumpster fire. Candida is usually implicit of a yeast overgrowth. Now, I think 97% of the funguses or yeast that grow in the small intestine are candida. That's also associated with the dysbiosis that you spoke about. Zonulin, which was found by Alessio Fasano, is a protein enzyme that pulls apart the tight junctions, the gateways. Occludin is the structural damage. And the bad guy, the anti-Zorro with the mask is lipopolysaccharide, LPS. So, you hit them all on the head. It's like going to the carnival and the guy swings the hammer and hits the bell. You hit the bell. So the question is, now that we know that these things cause damage to the gut, they cause an unsettling of a very delicate ecosystem. What are we going to do for it? And how are we going to be able to improve our prospects of having neuroception?
We get a saying in Kung Fu, all martial arts really, that I don't care how good you think you are, if you stand in the ring long enough, you're going to get punched in the face. And so if you realize that you're allergic to pomegranates or, in my case, honeydew, which I love, Honeydew melon, lovely stuff.
Who wouldn't?
Not allergic. I have sensitivities to it, right? But you know, +2, +3, I think maybe. So I'm not supposed to eat it. So if I have casein, if I have dairy, if I have things that I know my body is telling me, my immune system is telling me, hey man, don't eat this. I don't like this. I'm having a reaction to this. Then what I'm doing is I'm setting off inflammation and I'm creating problems downstream for my body, my life, and my neuroception, right? And so again, and this is a subtle point, but this is an important point because, you know, as a clinician, we could say, oh yeah, this, and that. But if you think about how your body as an animal, and this came to me in sleep, right? As I was up at night, and I'm a seasoned meditator, you know, sat with the Dalai Lama. I've been around the block. I know how to calm my mind. I'm lying there wide awake in the middle of the night going, what the heck is this? Mind racing, right? So instead of going to the Western medical algorithm and being like, okay, do I have any melatonin? Do I have any St. John's wort? Can I go find an old Quaalude? Like, you know, all of this crazy remedial crap that we do to say, shut up to a crying baby. I stopped and said, okay, what is this? Why is the baby crying? And I traced that back to saying, there's some, God, I just, my system is unsettled. And I realized that I had intestinal permeability and I was eating casein and I was eating the things that were, my body was saying alarm, 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 right? And in sleep, I could see it, hear it, and feel it because I asked the question instead of saying, shut up, I got work tomorrow, right? But think about what sleep is. I'm this mammal that hopefully is functioning in a tribe where, you know, say the two of us are in a cave. We're going to take turns. One guy's going to stand there with a pointy stick at the head of the cave and protect. One guy's going to sleep, and then we're going to take turns. Why? Because when I lay my body down, I'm going to trust that I'm going to close my eyes and I'm not going to wake up in the stomach of a lion. I'm not going to end up, you know, captive by a neighboring tribe. And so it's the ultimate release into this place of saying it's safe. You can close your eyes because when your sleep is compromised, it's telling you that your alarm bells are ringing. Your neuroceptive capacity has been compromised and you are getting signals saying, I'm not safe. And instead of saying, shut up, you listen and you realize that that neuroceptive array has been trying to talk to you probably for years, right? And that's where I think this connection between physical medicine and mind body medicine is really emerging with this body of work. And that's why I'm so excited about it. It's like, okay, we have physiological, neurological basis to now understand why these individuals, these patients aren't healing.
So the mind body may be the mind gut or the gut to mind tie-in. It's fascinating. Like we said, the gut is the epicenter of our health. So the immune system and the gut are closely connected, forming a symbiotic relationship. You said that before, where the gut microbiome plays a critical role in immune function. The gut, with its vast population of immune cells, acts as the body's largest immune organ, monitoring and responding to constantly changing environment of the GI tract. The connection is vital for overall health and well-being. Obviously, neuroception is that sense of it. So now I'm going to set you for another rapid fire. Here we go. The gut as an immune organ.
Yes. It's the sensory organ for your immune system. It's almost like the eyeball for your immune system.
First line of defense. Great. The gut's microbiome influence.
You want me to fill in the gaps?
Yeah, I'm going to have you fill in the gaps.
Yeah, everything. Everything. From butyrates downstream, everything.
We talked about dysbiosis and its effect. What about increased vulnerability in the gut? People come in and say, you know, my gut is healthy. How can it go awry so quick?
Glyphosate, food sensitivities, severe infections, and then followed by a bout of Cipro or something to save your life that stops, you know, the migrating motor complex. I mean, there's so many areas that I see people get perfectly healthy person goes to Peru and gets some gut bug. They get put on something. It kills their MMC, and now suddenly they have SIBO. It doesn't have to happen over 30 years. It could happen overnight, and sometimes it happens over 30 years. But look, we deal with what walks into our clinics.
I got a buddy who watches all my podcasts, and I usually do it at the end, but I want to do it now. And he'll say, you know what? Cipher through everything. Give me the Reader's Digest version. Give me 3 things I need to do to be healthier because I want to live to 120 and die of hypervitaminosis?
Uh, First thing is always, always, always lengthen your fuse every day through resilience practices. Do things that make your body feel safe. Take deep breaths. Trigger your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's a deep dive, but I could tell you exactly what we know can do that very clearly. Number two, very simple. Don't poison yourself. You know what that means, right? Don't poison yourself. And number three, rest when tired. Give your body a chance to catch its breath. In a world that won't stop, you have to. And you have to say stop to the world, or else you're going to overwhelm your system. You're going to be in neuroceptive hell, and you're never going to be able to heal and recover. And you're never going to put on muscle mass, which won't get you to 120.
Let's talk about the polyvagal theory. The vagus nerve, as you said, cranial nerve number 10, goes from the brainstem, the medulla oblongata, down through the transverse colon. People have heard me talk about this before. They call it the vagus nerve because it's the great wanderer. It's got branches to virtually everything in your thoracic and your abdominal region. We talk about vagus nerve stimulation because most people are sympathetic and not parasympathetic. But you're alluding to in the polyvagal, there's two reactions in the parasympathetic nervous system, one of which is almost freezing. The other one is the rest and digest. Can you differentiate that? Can you go into detail? Can you illuminate that? Because for someone who has been stimulating the vagus nerve because of the lack of parasympathetics, that vagal theory really was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, yeah, same here, same here. I mean, this is, again, this isn't my work. This is a guy who stumbled on another guy's work. So, you and me both. But the ventral vagal, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, that's our rest and digest state for the most part. But when a threat is detected, we shift into sympathetic fight or flight, which is dorsal vagal, that freeze response. And this is where it gets interesting. The impact on secretory IgA, so it's most abundant antibody in our mucosal secretions. We measure it in functional medicine all the time. It's kind of a moniker of our immune defense in our gut. When we have increased parasympathetic tone, it promotes digestive function. SIGA production in a parasympathetic activation state is optimized, and our GALT, which we've already talked about, receives signals that maintain healthy SIGA levels. The TSA line is normal, everything is chill. But when we have neuroception and our detections of threat, resources will shift away from digestion. Okay. And they're saying, look, there's a problem. Forget about the magnesium you're pulling out of that chunk of food right now. We got a guy hopping the security line. And so once in a while that happens, that's normal. But when you have a chronic sympathetic activation, which is pretty much everyone especially in New York City, that suppresses our SIGA production. And that prolonged psychological stress and that reduced SIGA level that corresponds to that, we can track in saliva, we can track in gut secretions. That starts to create some of the problems, right? We'll get intestinal permeability. We will then start to get what you call, El Diablo, LPS, and some of these, kind of gram-negative bacteria will have bits of them that they secrete, these lipopolysaccharides. When they start crossing over a leaky gut, then we are now on the blood level. Now we're not in the gut. We are inside the castle walls, and it is a full-blown emergency. We will have inflammatory cascades go crazy. Our cytokines go crazy. And what happens is we will then be in a high alert, high arousal state, not feeling well, feeling anxious, having insomnia, and being like, hey, look, I keep trying to eat all the right stuff and take all the supplements my doctor gives me, but I still don't feel well because we are too wound up to heal. And that's the patient, right? Unfortunately, that patient ends up showing up more often than not because the world's getting nuttier and it's getting harder and harder to maintain that equilibrium, that homeostasis. And so now, before I would have a really stressed out individual, I'd be like, all right, we're going to send you down the hall to neurofeedback, or you go do some yoga. And there was like 1 in 10. Now it's like 7 in 10 people are too wound up to heal. And so it's becoming a much bigger problem that I see clinically and in society that I think we need to address. I think it's the elephant in the room.
You talk about fight or flight. So it could be getting pushed on a subway, could be a car accident, it could be food, it could just be mental stress. And I think that's an overlying theme. So you're telling me my mental stress, my anxiety, I want my hair to look a different way and I'm crazy about it. Take something abstract. And I get excited. I go from parasympathetic to sympathetic. My secretory IgA now goes down or up.
It goes down. So suppresses your secretory IgA.
So my anxiety is adversely affecting my digestion and can conceivably lead me to a leaky gut.
100%. 100%. And vice versa is my argument, right?
Mm.
Is if you have a leaky gut, it is also ringing alarm bells and your body doesn't speak English. So now you have a mild form of anxiety because your body's telling you something and you're not listening. And so I think that it is a forward feeding system. And we
Mm.
know that the brain and the gut are communicating bidirectionally. And I
Correct.
think that we've been very good about saying, oh, well, you're too stressed out, and talking about, de-stressing people that have anxiety that you think is probably contributing to their gut issues. But my argument in digging this research up is we're not listening to the other way around, right? Dr. Pedram, lying up in the middle of the night with insomnia, is saying, no, my body is telling me something and it is feeling like insomnia and anxiety. And then when I resolved the gut lining issue, all of that went away. And so I think that it's both. And that is the part that I think we've been missing in functional medicine. I mean, conventional medicine, they miss everything, right? But the main thesis here is that if you're not addressing as above, so below, and you're not fixing the gut lining, you're also leading to the anxiety and the other issues that become a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It becomes a downward spiral one way or the other. You have to fix it all.
It's interesting. We talk about vagus nerve stimulation, but the idea of the ventral and the dorsal, could we conceivably be stimulating the vagus nerve too much and slowing us down? That was a bit of a rhetorical question. So the answer is probably yes. But interesting balancing of the vagus nerve. And that comes back to the big theme that really draws us into the idea of functional medicine, root cause resolution to homeostasis, this beautiful balance and this interconnection in the body, communicating in a harmonious manner. But there's some studies that show that vagus nerve stimulation decreases depression. Vagus nerve stimulation is at the interface of the microbiota gut to brain axis, IBS, IBD going down, which is really a byproduct of dysbiosis, better digestion because a decreased secretion of hydrochloric acid, pancreatic enzymes, and parietal cells, bile are all implicit in vagus nerve tone being decreased. So we want to increase vagus nerve tone. But really to speak to what you're talking about, the idea of neuroception, here you've got the microbes in the gut coming from probiotics, communicating with the gut and communicating with the brain. So neuroception is that three-way calling communication. I have to say, this is quite exciting to somebody like me.
Same here. I mean, when I started stumbling on this, I had a missing link moment. I want to give an example. I've been a Qigong meditation guy for a very long time. And we know there are some anchors that can trigger parasympathetic nervous system. We know that if you put the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth and do deep diaphragmatic breathing, it starts to influence your nervous system towards parasympathetic and increases your vagal tone. We know that bending your knees and relaxing your gastroc muscle does that. We also have found that the shift from focused vision to peripheral vision does that. And so I want to use this as an example because I think it elucidates what we're talking about. Is if I'm an antelope that just ate some grass and I'm sitting there chewing it and digesting it, and I got maybe a buddy behind me looking that way, I'm scanning. I'm doing a broad peripheral scan of this savanna and just enjoying my lunch. And then I see something. And as that something starts to come, I'm like, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And I start narrowing my vision to say, is that a threat? Is that a threat? If it's not a threat, I go back out and say, oh, yay. And if it is a threat, you're like, uh-oh, does it see me? Is it coming at me? Is that a lion? Is that a lion? And what that does is it starts to shift my vagal tone and say, hey, you know what? We need to stop digesting this grass right now, and we need to maybe think about running. Hold on, let me see, right? But then as that animal determines friend or foe, danger or not, it either stays in that peripheral vision or goes, oh God, that is a lion and it's coming at me. And then it immediately gets up, probably poops, and runs for its life. And
Mm.
it does not digest in that moment. And it has a very dysbiotic state because it didn't do the thing the digestive juices were supposed to be doing in that moment. And so an animal that gets disrupted multiple times a day isn't going to live long. That animal is not going to live to 120 like your buddy. And so peripheral vision versus TikTok, peripheral vision versus, scrolling the news,
Mm.
they all have to do with one another. Like we are now focused in on very small places where we're getting bad news and staying in a bad news loop about how scary the world is instead of going to some vista and looking out broadly and allowing our bodies to just relax. And I think that's the medicine we're missing.
So if I had to tell my buddy in Geneva, Switzerland, one thing, and he's a calm guy, so it may go wasted. I'm the type AAA dude out of the two of us, without question. Been that way since day one. He was, he's calmed down a lot and he's matured. I'm working on it. But I hear a resonating idea in that everybody would benefit from calming down, meditating, and gathering your emotions or being in control of your emotions more.
100%. And if he's in
So,
Geneva, just go to any mountain anywhere close to Geneva and climb up there and just get a nice vista and spread your vision peripheral and relax your system and just look at a broad peripheral view. Take note of how you feel 20 minutes prior and 20 minutes after. There's not a human that I know that wouldn't say, yes, I feel better. That is a direct activation of parasympathetic nervous system, increase of vagal tone, and increase of blood supply to the gut, immunological sensors. Everything says, okay, it's okay. The world is safe. And when the world is safe, you could go back to work, resting, digesting, healing, and growing.
so what are the long-term implications of this science? Where are we going with it?
This is the missing ingredient in longevity, right? I
Mm,
just came from I'm in Austin, right? All these guys running around trying to figure out which cold plunge is better for them and which version of urolithin A is going to get them to live forever,
right.
and they're so orthorexic about it that they're dying anyways.
The good
I,
one.
I I mean, listen, the chill pill comes at the bottom of your next breath, not in a supplement bottle. And I think that has been where we've all been duped because you can't patent the next breath. And so the market driven forces that are driving healthcare on the alt side, on the all of it, right, are still market, like you still got to empty pill bottles to make money. And I think that business model is leading the witness and moving us away from where true health should be.
So, Pedram, Rob is going to ask you a question. We're in a coffee shop. I've got my Java, my organic coffee. I'm going to give you a crystal ball. I want you to look in that crystal ball. And the crystal ball says, look to the future. Tell me where we're going to be and what's going to be the conversation piece in health, functional medicine in the next 3 to 5 years.
I think neuroception is going to be a central theme. And I think the integration of where our role in resilience lies has to do with the anterior cingulate cortex and our ability to become aware of multiple streams of information that are inside of our body. So all this stuff we were talking about is interoception, right? Our ability to sense our inner organs, our vagal tone, all these things are interoception. Exteroception is our five senses. We still have proprioception, we have neuroception, we have equilibrioception. We have all of these data streams that our nervous system has evolved to be hyper aware of, that we've cut ourselves off of, whether it's from the glyphosate or the TikTok. And we are lacking our ability to be aware of the data streams and it's turning the lights off.
Wow.
And I think the lights turn back on through us becoming more self-aware and us doing the things that keep us from poisoning ourselves to allow the system to come back online. The body can heal itself, says every natural medicine doctor.
Mhm.
What are we doing to obstruct that? That I think becomes the central theme.
Outstanding. So for those people who have their pen and paper ready, I'm going to ask you one to three things for each question. Give me your favorite foods for neuroception.
The favorite foods for neuroception, and this isn't dodging the question, is what we've identified you don't have sensitivities to.
Yeah.
Every single person has different sensitivities, and I'd be damned if I were to guess because I've always seen crazy stuff come up. It's like
Crazy.
Betty's alert. Betty has an issue with tomatoes, and I've got honeydew. So I think it's individualized. So I'm not answering that globally because I will be wrong for somebody.
Foods that don't generate inflammation. So anti-inflammatory foods, inclusive of food sensitivities, remove food sensitivities, food allergies, food intolerances, etc. Test, don't guess. Fabulous. Give me your favorite supplements for neuroception.
I like magnesium. I like threonate for different reasons. I also like fiber, prebiotic fiber that allows for you to incubate the right bacteria that then
Okay.
allow the safety
Super.
signaling to happen in your gut.
Exercise. Now, it can be actual physical exercise or forms of exercise. What would you recommend?
Listen, I'm partial to the Tai Chi's and the mind body practices for a very specific reason. I want my eyes, mind, body, and breath focused on what I'm doing. So whether it's a sit up, a push up, my awareness folded back into what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And that's when the real magic happens. So any form of exercise with mindfulness as the undercurrent becomes incredibly beneficial beyond just the heart rate elevation and the moving of the muscles.
Your three favorite longevity hacks that also have a positive effect on neuroception. You listed one of them about a cold plunge. I agree with you. I'm not jumping in 10-degree ice.
I don't like cold plunges for everybody. And again, I think some people don't have the nervous system or the grit for cold plunges, and I think it would put them over the top and make them feel unsafe. I think that it is the straw that can break some people's back. And so, I love sleep, I love meditation, and I
Hmm.
love breath work. Notice nothing I mentioned cost $3,000 there.
Right. They're all things that you can do, and they're all in the parasympathetic zone, if you will,
You got it.
engaging that ventral portion of the vagus nerve. So practitioners, remember, it's not just the vagus nerve. It's stimulating the ventral, but not so much the dorsal, because who wants to freeze? That's a huge takeaway. So what's next for you personally, professionally?
In the middle of doing a ton of research on a book on this kind of multiceptual awareness, some of the brain stuff that I talked about. Doing a clinical trial with 150 people. We're monitoring blood, I don't know, 27 blood markers, saliva, SIGA, and heart rate variability, showing how folding our attention on not just our vision, but in our breath and our posture and all these things, folding and capacitating those do powerful things to our nervous system and allow for our NF-kappa B and our healing pathways to happen. So I've been pretty nerdy in the last couple of months and a couple months, a couple years, and I'm just getting to the point where we're going to run the study, publish the study, and then I'll eventually write another book. But one thing at a time. I'm not in a hurry.
Amazing. Amazing. Another book. You're on fire, my friend. This has been great. I really appreciate your time. We've got to do it again. Dr. Pedram, you are without question a superstar, and you have achieved being a luminary on my dais. It was my
Thank you.
pleasure. Thanks so much. Rob Silverman,
I
Proven
enjoyed
Health
it.
Alternatives, always yours in health.